Okay, YouTube is saying the chat's not working or something, so I don't know if this will even load. Says I'm live, so okay. So this section of the book I entered now is on bilocation, which kind of surprised me because I didn't expect it. But bilocation, it's focused on a certain Christian saint who was known to bilocate a lot, Maria de Agreda. And so I just finished the section on a brief history of bilocation. And so what stood out to me so far is that he describes how the the, the Christian saints who bilocate, when they do so, their body goes into like this catatonic ecstasy, um, like a deep samadhi, essentially, as defined by yoga. And so I found that fascinating. And then he said that there was one example where the person who bilocated did so nearby, and the people who witnessed it were able to see both bodies at the same time by like running back and forth, which is really weird. But then I remembered I in Taoist alchemy, bilocation is called the Yang Shen. And so in 2000, I actually asked Qigong master Chen Yulin if he had created a Yang Shen, and he said that people had seen him outside of his house in China walking around when he was inside meditating. And that's pretty similar to um, the example given in this book where the the person was nearby and then like in another part of the church essentially, and then they were able to, or maybe it was like the monastery or whatever, and so the people witnessing the bilocation actually could run back and forth and see both bodies at the same time. um the Okay, so in terms of Taoist yoga and the Yang Shen and the ability to bilocate, it's considered like the highest level, before you essentially vaporize your body back into the one chi. So how would bilocation be possible? Um, it makes sense when if you're accessing your soul, and actually, Punjaji describes this bilocation. Well, the memoir of Punjaji called "Nothing Ever Happened," where he one time he bilocated 6 different bodies at the same time. Um, but for his birthday party in India, and there's probably some other example. Oh yeah, there was another example. Well, actually, there's one example where he's in driving this treacherous route through the mountains, but he was like in deep sleep when he did it. He doesn't remember doing it. Um, the point being that, well, he describes like Teresa de Avila when she bilocated. She corroborated it later, and she said, "Well, God wanted me to be there." And so essentially, like on that really deep level of meditation, the universe takes over your body, or the God, or whatever you want to call it, and um, based on the intentions, like she had promised somebody, or no, there was somebody else who bilocated. They said they had promised they'd be there for somebody else when they were dying, so they bilocated. So in other words, like you'd have these connections that you make, and then later on you fulfill them through bilocation. And So yeah, again, this is very hard to believe, but when you really study physics, you discover that all matter is actually made of light. And in terms of meditation, it's all based on coherent biophotons, and you're turning the light around. And then there's a secret power to light based on the virtual photon, which is a negative frequency. And your soul would be like this magnetic moment between the phase velocity difference between the electron and the proton. And so that's like the spin. It's the same thing as a spin, and it's this is described by Andrei Puharich originally, but I've done my own research on it. So the one half spin essentially as a magnetic moment is actually superluminal, and so you can, when you access your soul, you can access the future and the past, because the soul exists like in this fifth dimension that's the future and the past overlapping. So it doesn't mean that, like some of these internet physicists or whatever, they're trying to claim that, well, it proves that reality is just virtual. And when you have this like idea of virtual reality, then it's like, well, nothing really matters because we just live in a computer. But that's not what I'm saying. Just because you can access your future in this dimension of like 4D space time, the it doesn't mean that the 4D space time is not real. It's just that it's like a sort of like less real, I guess you could say, but it's obviously just as real for anybody experiencing it. Um, this is explained pretty well by Stuart Hameroff's um, and Roger Penrose's ORC model of consciousness, and it has to do with the frequency versus the time of like space-time separation. And Roger Penrose has like an equation for that. And I don't know, whether it's very precise or not, but it's a good sort of introduction to how it would be explained. So, like the higher frequency you have, the more quantum momentum you have. To be superluminal in this fifth dimension is quantum coherence. And if you keep doing that on it, you can store up the Wan Chi energy in your body. And what gets strange is that physically you're storing it in the intestines. And then you activate it through the heart, the right side of the heart, and then it manifests out of your body through the pineal gland. And so the book Taoist Yoga, Alchemy and Immortality, explains essentially that if you keep doing that, storing up more and more of the Wan Chi, and the Wan Chi feels like this magnetic, anti-gravitational, like gravitationally repulsive force, and it's based again on this negative frequency, time reversed information. And so eventually your whole body would vaporize back into that like pure information reality. But before that happens, you can do transmutation of matter and create new matter. And so, I mean, obviously, it's a like very advanced ability. So you'd have to be meditating all the time to store up the Wan Chi, because as soon as you open your eyes, the Wan Chi wants to like go out of your eyes, or it will separate. It separates back into the Yin Chi, which is essentially like negative ions, and the Yang Chi, which is the Yang Chi is like physically tied to your body through the storage of the the charge. Excuse me. So the Yang Chi is essentially the positive ions. And I explain this again in my View Zone article, but like when they studied electric eels, because Qigong master John Chang says that he's the same as an electric eel. So I just kind of like took that literally. And the electric eel stores up the charge through the fat in the brain. And that's also, it's the lecithin that myelinates your neurons. And so that's why celibacy is so key for males, because that's mainly composed of lecithin, for the male. And so that's what gets lost is the charge. And also, it's not just physical celibacy, but it has to be mental celibacy in terms of purification of the thoughts and the intention for what they call yi in Taoist alchemy, yi, and the intention is literally based on the frequency of the light. So it's subconscious and then super conscious at the same time. So you have to like constantly be uh like you have to do strange things like flex your anal sphincter to hold in the wan chi in your lower body to keep it from getting lost out of your pineal gland. And then so that like in Taoist yoga there's these tricks where if you don't know them, you're not going to be able to store up the energy. And you're also like, so you're basically like constantly trying to purify it based on the frequency of the light. And then eventually, you would be communicating with ghosts and angels and all that. And um, another thing is this: if you get, it's based on your emotions and the purification. So if you get angry, like I mean, you can feel the charge from electrical transducers and what do you call it? Capacitors. When they switch on, you can feel that in the middle of your brain. You can also feel the full moon in the middle of your brain and the solstice energy. It's like we are. Well, another thing about these bilocating saints is that they're barefoot. I noticed because I'm like, are they all barefoot? Because he doesn't realize that being barefoot is a really key factor in terms of the negative ions as yin chi going into your body and like creating a open circuit as a charge that you can constantly like recharge the wan chi that way. And so the qigong masters are able to do constant healing as long as they can keep that circuit open and then recharge it. And if they don't, if they overuse their wan chi, it creates a space-time vortex. And that's what happened to me, and that's why I stopped meditating and my channels closed up after that. So I lost the open circuit of the wan chi. Like I still have it in the center of my body, but in terms of nirvikalpa samadhi, you have to have your full body like full of wan chi. Um, and then you have this like much more powerful magnetic field, and that's what enables like telekinesis, and telepathy, and precognitive dreams, and then also this anti-gravitational force. You feel it like pulling you up the center of the brain. It sort of like pulls it literally, like especially like with the full moon or the solstice or whatever equinox. It's you can feel this magnetic force like pulling you up, anti-gravitational, but it's not just upwards, it's also precognitive. So it's negentropy. It like organizes the information of your soul. So that's why the qigong master, when he does soul healing, he's literally accessing other people's soul around them, and then he's if they're meditating with him, he's able to then send out what's called a wan shen in Taoism, which is basically that clear light. It's like the light of no light. I mean, you see it as a yellow light, but it originates from this process of the clear light of the virtual photons. So there's a difference between like external reality and internal reality in meditation. So for the person meditating, it's instantaneous and they don't experience any time. But then For external time, it's like relativity where everything is slightly different. So you can bilocate, but externally, it's always going to be a slightly different space time, you know. But and the person actually doing the bilocation is not gonna. They're constantly emptying out space time as a 4D reality, and that's what they call the Wansham when the light is so bright that you lose all self-awareness. So it's just like deep sleep, but then the brightness of the light just kind of like burns out all your other perceptions, and then the universe just does what it needs to do with your matter at that point. And so that's the great irony, is that these so-called masters, because they are masters, but at the same time they've basically like handed over their whole bodies to the universe to do with what it needs to do, or what you've prearranged for it to do, or whatever. So there's a great, like, he talks about the irony. Like another one is the fool, the concept of the divine fool, where these people are saints, but they're constantly like, whatever they do, they will constantly make a fool of themselves. Like it doesn't matter, because the reason that happens is because you're constantly like clearing out the blockages around you.